At the beginning of the movie, we see two survivors of a plane crash discovering a mysterious machine-like object on a deserted island. On top of it was a massive iron hatch door. However, it had neither a lock nor a handle. The question was, what was inside? To find out, the two men made a makeshift hammer from the wreckage of the crashed plane and tried with all their strength to break open the hatch. A terrifying explosion-like impact occurred. The force of the blow was so powerful that even the supporting structure broke apart, yet the hatch didn't receive even a single scratch. The bald man became furious. He started kicking the hatch and yelling curses at it. Then he noticed that his leg had been injured. But the strange thing was that he felt absolutely no pain. That night, he couldn't stop thinking about it. He decided that no matter what happened, he would open the hatch. But suddenly, the loud sound of an aircraft echoed through the sky. Both men looked up and saw a plane losing control and crashing down. They thought a rescue team had finally arrived. Without wasting a second, they ran toward it. On the way, the bald man noticed something. He picked it up and saw that it was a cross. But as soon as he pulled on a nearby vine, a badly decayed corpse fell from a tree. There was a large amount of cash in its pocket. Along with it was a .42 caliber pistol. They couldn't identify who the dead person was, but one thing was clear. He was no ordinary man. The two continued forward and eventually found a plane lodged high in a giant tree. The pain in the bald man's leg was getting worse, so he couldn't climb. As a result, the other man went alone to investigate the plane. Inside, he found an air map. But before he could examine it properly, the plane suddenly began shaking. He almost fell from the tree. After regaining his balance, he noticed that several Buddha statues had been stored inside the aircraft. When he broke them open, drugs were hidden inside. Then he discovered something even more surprising. The plane's radio was still working. He was about to go crazy with excitement when the aircraft suddenly started shaking violently again. It looked like it could fall at any moment. The bald man standing below was shouting for him to get out. The very next moment, the plane completely lost balance and crashed straight toward the ground. With a massive explosion, the plane crashed. The bald man forgot about his own injury and immediately ran to help him. The other man was badly wounded. The bald man somehow found incredible strength, lifted him up, and ran straight back toward the camp. About half an hour later, he brought the injured man back. When Jack asked what had happened, the bald man lied and said that he had accidentally fallen from a hill. Jack then began treating him. But when Jack later called for the bald man's help, he had already left the camp. He went directly to the mysterious hatch and began crying uncontrollably. The truth was that he had previously been paralyzed from the waist down. But after arriving on the island, he had miraculously regained the ability to walk. He believed it was the power of this mysterious island. Now, however, his legs had stopped working again. Dragging himself across the ground, he reached the hatch. Suddenly, the hatch began to glow. At the same time, the injured man regained consciousness. He told Jack about the mysterious hatch, but before he could explain much more, he lost consciousness again. Then Jack noticed that his leg had become severely swollen. This was no ordinary injury from a simple fall. Because of the bald man's lie, Jack had been treating the wrong condition the entire time. The next day, the man died. Meanwhile, on the same day, Anna's baby was born. The entire camp was caught between joy and grief at the same time. But the bald man still had not returned. While the dead man's funeral was taking place, the bald man finally came back to camp, covered in blood. He told everyone about finding the plane. Upon hearing this, Jack completely lost control. The death of his friend had shattered him. He charged at the bald man to attack him, but the others stepped in and stopped him. After calming Jack down, the curly-haired man, who had been trying to locate a radio signal, left with the bald man to find the plane. But in reality, he wanted to force the truth out of him. Then a shocking truth was revealed. The person who had knocked him unconscious on the mountain and destroyed the equipment while he was trying to send a radio signal was none other than the bald man himself. The moment he heard that, he exploded with anger and pointed a gun directly at the bald man's head. The bald man immediately defended himself, saying that he had done it because he feared the radio signal would reveal the location of their camp and the island's natives would attack them. For a while, he accepted the explanation, but the moment he asked about the hatch, the bald man once again pretended not to know anything. Eventually, he led them to the hatch. However, he kept the glowing incident a secret. Jack wanted to open the hatch, but the curly-haired man strongly opposed the idea. At the same time, some good news arrived. The boat built by the big black man was finally finished. Just as they were preparing to sail out to sea, the younger black man noticed something. Everyone looked carefully and saw black smoke rising from the center of the island. At that very moment, the Frenchwoman suddenly appeared. She told everyone that the black smoke was a sign of an attack by the natives. Whenever it appeared, people had only two choices left: either hide or wait for death. Jack and his companions immediately sat down to discuss a plan, but their biggest problem was that there were 46 people in total. Hiding such a large group was almost impossible. On top of that, nobody knew how many enemies they were facing. If they chose direct combat, their chances of winning were nearly zero. Left with no choice, Jack took Lisa and headed toward the mysterious hatch, the underground door. He hoped she might know a way to open it so everyone could hide inside. Although Lisa had never seen anything like it before, there was very little time left, so everyone immediately began preparing. But before leaving, a man named Da Zhuang approached Jack. He explained that he was a chemistry teacher and had extensive knowledge of explosives. Jack immediately accepted his help. After that, a group of 6 people set out on the journey. After walking for a long time, Lisa suddenly told everyone to stop. She warned them that the area ahead was extremely dangerous. Her former companions had been killed somewhere around that location. The moment he heard that, Da Zhuang became terrified and turned around to run away. Jack tried to stop him, but Da Zhuang was completely overcome by fear. As he ran off, he shouted only one thing: "Saving your own life is the most important thing." Hearing this, Jack was filled with anger. Suddenly, heavy rain began to fall. The mountain path had already been difficult, and the rain made it even more slippery. At that moment, everyone heard a strange sound coming from somewhere nearby. They all looked ahead at once. There, they saw Da Zhuang returning. He had gotten lost. But in the very next moment, the terrifying monster suddenly appeared. Everyone immediately ran for their lives. The strange thing was that the bald man remained completely calm. He didn't run. Instead, it seemed as if he was waiting for something. Meanwhile, Lisa and the others hid in the bushes. After a short while, the screams stopped. Now only the sound of heavy footsteps echoed around them. A few seconds later, those footsteps started moving farther away, and the surroundings became quiet once again. Only then did everyone breathe a sigh of relief. Afterward, the group reunited. Da Zhuang no longer had the courage to travel alone. Embarrassed, he joined the team and continued with them. After a long journey, they finally reached the place where the explosives were stored. There stood a broken old ship. Everyone was stunned because the ship was located nearly 4 kilometers away from the sea. How had a ship ended up that far inland? Even Lisa didn't know the answer. Jack, the bald man, and the others entered the ship. Inside, they found many small rooms, secured with heavy iron chains. It looked like a medieval slave ship. Jack opened one of the rooms and found crates filled with explosives. But as soon as they started carrying the crates out, Dazwang came running over and stopped them. Angrily, he shouted, "Do you people want to die?" He explained that the crates contained extremely dangerous explosive oil. Even a slight impact could trigger an explosion. First, he carefully held both ends of the explosive. Then, he soaked his shirt in water. After that, he slowly wrapped the explosive in the wet cloth so it would remain in a damp environment and not generate static electricity. Proudly, he said, "This is what you call the professional way." But in the very next moment, he died in a truly professional manner. A tremendous explosion occurred. Not a single piece of him remained. After taking some time to recover from the shock, Jack and the bald man tried again. This time, they were far more careful. Fortunately, no accident happened. Eventually, they safely packed the explosives into bags. Afterward, the 4 of them started heading back toward the mysterious hatch. On the way, Jack suddenly noticed black smoke floating among the bushes. At first, he thought he was imagining it, so he asked Kelly. But Kelly had seen the exact same thing. Now everyone knew something was wrong. They immediately started running, but by then it was already too late. The monster had seen them. The 3 of them ran in terror. But the bald man still didn't run. Instead, he moved excitedly straight toward the monster. Jack immediately realized that something was wrong and turned back to stop him. But it was already too late. The monster suddenly burst out of the ground and grabbed the bald man, dragging him downward. Jack instantly rushed to help him. At the last second, he managed to grab hold of the bald man, but the monster was so strong that Jack couldn't pull him free no matter how hard he tried. Finally, left with no other option, Jack asked Kelly for the explosives. He took a bomb and threw it directly into the pit. A massive explosion followed. Then the creature turned into black smoke and disappeared. But the strangest thing was that even after being saved, the bald man wasn't happy. Instead, he stared angrily at Jack. It seemed as though he absolutely didn't like the fact that the monster had been hurt. Meanwhile, on the other side, the rescue boat had already been launched into the water. Ah, Seng Biao and Pao Chai were aboard. Their mission was to go out and find help. That night, Seng Biao spotted a ship in the distance. They immediately fired a signal flare. Within minutes, the ship began heading toward them. Everyone was overjoyed. They thought their troubles were finally about to end. But when the people on the other vessel learned the whole story, they suddenly said, "Give us the little black child." Ah thought he had heard them wrong, but they repeated the same demand. They wanted to take the child with them. Sang Biao immediately sensed danger. Slowly, he moved his hand toward his gun. Suddenly, all the lights went out. Sang Biao fired instantly, but he missed. At that same moment, the people on the other ship fired back and knocked him into the sea. Pao Chai immediately jumped into the water to save him. Taking advantage of the situation, the attackers threw Aha into the ocean as well and took the little child with them. Before leaving, they tossed a bomb that completely destroyed the rescue boat. Ahi could do nothing except helplessly watch his son being taken away. Meanwhile, Jack asked the bald man, "Why were you looking at me like that? Were you trying to protect that monster?" The bald man replied that he believed the plane crash had not been an accident. According to him, it was fate that had brought them there. He said, "Think about it. How did the plane stairs survive all that destruction? The steel man was crushed to death beneath the plane, and the black smoke rising from this island wasn't a coincidence either." According to him, all of those events had happened to lead them to the mysterious hatch. But Jack was a practical man. He didn't believe in things like fate. Soon afterward, the four of them arrived at the hatch. They placed the explosives and prepared the fuse. Everything was ready. But suddenly, the fat man's flashlight slipped from his hand and fell. When he bent down to pick it up, he noticed a series of numbers written on the hatch. They were exactly the same numbers his friend had once mentioned regarding the cursed box. The sight terrified him. He immediately ran to stop the explosion, but the bald man ignored him. Without hesitation, he lit the fuse. The fat man desperately rushed to extinguish it. Fortunately, Jack pulled him away just in time. The next moment, a massive explosion shook the area. The sky filled with flames. After the smoke cleared, they saw that the hatch had been completely destroyed. But the sight inside left them speechless. There was an incredibly deep tunnel beneath it, with a long staircase leading downward. The bottom couldn't be seen. It felt as if the island's greatest secret, and perhaps the final destination of their fate, was hidden somewhere deep within that tunnel. For more movie explanations like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel.